Welcome to day 309. Again, we're in the four Gospels, so let's get at it. Let's talk about Joseph of Arimathea. Who was he? In Luke 23, verses 50 through 51, we get a really good glimpse of who this person was in just the two verses. Now, there was a good and righteous man named Joseph. He was good and he was righteous. He was a member of the Jewish High Council. So that means he was there during the meeting with Christ and during the condemning things that were said about Jesus. But he had not agreed with the decisions and actions of the other religious leaders. But again, he, and like many others, sometimes on a court, it takes only a majority. Not necessarily a unanimous decision. So here's a righteous man on the council, and his vote was not enough to spare Jesus' life. He was from the town of Arimathea in Judea, and he was waiting for the kingdom of God to come. Boom. The Pharisees were waiting for the kingdom of God to come. Now, in today's time, we are waiting for the second coming. And we also understand that there will be a rapture. And in between the rapture and the second coming will be the tribulation time. And we'll be spared that time of great tribulation, great sorrow, and great hardship on the world. That condemnation on the world. We are spared from that. And the thing is, we are waiting for that. We know it's coming. The other Pharisees were waiting for Christ to come, for the Messiah to come. But they were foolish morons because they couldn't see what was going on in front of them. And here's the other part. Even the disciples, which we'll get to tomorrow, were aware of the scriptures that said that Jesus needed to be crucified and then he would rise on the third day. And it even says it in today's reading. But tomorrow we'll talk about the disciples and that they just didn't accept it. So that's a little bit about Joseph. Let's go on with the Pharisees and continue that thought process. If we go to Matthew 27, 62 through 66, let me read this. The next day on the Sabbath, the leading priests and Pharisees went to see Pilate. They told him, "Sir, we remember what that deceiver once said while he was still alive. After 3 days, I will rise from the dead." Okay, so the thing is, the Pharisees are supposed to know the scriptures, and the scriptures said that the Messiah would come and be killed and rise 3 days later. So we request that you seal the tomb until the third day. This will prevent his disciples from coming and stealing his body, and then telling everyone he was raised from the dead. If that happens, we'll be worse off than we were at first. Okay, so they knew that Jesus said he would raise from the 3 days later. And supposedly, being so well versed in the scriptures, they should have known that that's what the Messiah was supposed to do as well. So they didn't want to accept that Jesus was the Messiah. They were looking for the Messiah. They knew the Messiah would come from Bethlehem. They knew the Messiah was going to come during this time period, but they wouldn't accept Jesus as the Messiah. God put something in their hearts and their minds, greed, power, envy, whatever, and they didn't want that to happen. So they went to Pilate and said, "Hey, we need to make sure this doesn't happen." So they just didn't post their own people and watch. They went to the Roman people who hated the Jews. The guards were bred from birth to only do what they were supposedly told, and if they failed, they'd be put to death. They didn't care about Jesus. They didn't care about the Jewish Pharisees. They didn't care about any of them. In fact, they hated them because of all the crap that was going on. So Pilate said, "Take guards and secure it the best you can." So they sealed the tomb and posted guards to protect it. They were expecting something to happen. If you knew a thief was coming, you would stand guard with your guns and wait for it. And you wouldn't let that thief come in. Don't tell me what they're going to say at the end of this. We're going to talk about one quick thing, and then we'll get to that part of the story. 7 demons. Mary Magdalene, whom Jesus casted out 7 demons. So there's your 7 for the day, but we already talked about that. I'm not even going to add it to the list because it's already been talked about. That's in Mark 16:9. So back to the story, Matthew 28, 11 through 15. Let's read this. As the women were on their way, some of the guards went into the city and told the leading priests what had happened. A meeting with the elders was called, and they decided to give the soldiers a large bribe. They told the soldiers, "You must say Jesus' disciples came during the night while we were sleeping, and they stole his body. If the governor hears about it, we'll stand up for you so you won't get in trouble." So the guards accepted the bribe and said what they were told to say. Their story spread widely among the Jews, and they still tell it today. You are not going to tell me that the guards and the expectation, knowing that Jesus said he would raise from the dead, that all of a sudden they were overtaken by a bunch of fishermen and they weren't hurt. It doesn't say anything about them getting beat up. Certainly that would be physical evidence that they were overtaken. Doesn't say anything about that. Are you really going to tell me that those 11 disciples overtook those guards, moved away the stone, and took Jesus' body? That's not going to happen. That is so inconceivable. They were waiting for something like this to happen. Don't tell me that they weren't prepared for the disciples to come and try to take the body. You can't convince, and any normal thinking person would realize, okay, that claim doesn't hold up. It doesn't make any sense. And yet they still tell it today. So let's see what happens tomorrow. That's your day 309. I'll see you tomorrow.